I'm John Maher. I'm a professor of animal law and international business transactions at Touro Law School and a practicing lawyer. Anyway, we have some slight tech issues, so bear with me. My talk is going to concern the intersection of theory and my practical experience concerning puppy mills. But as a segue, I'll tell you that my father was a theoretical, was a theoretical biophysicist. He did not do any vivisection, but the people in the next office down were often vivisectors trying to create new enzymatic pathways using his theoretical work in a practical application. So I would always walk past these vivisected animals. And in fact, my summer job as a little kid for many years was cleaning up rat and mouse and cages and other. We're still not queued up, but we will be. Sorry. Well, not what I want to talk about, resolution. But anyway, so I began as a little kid stealing animals and keeping them and rescuing some of them. And it was a very naive, care-based approach. And later, when I went to college, I got some theory. I'm trained as an economist and a lawyer. I was involved in direct actions, I'm not here to talk about that because basically we did a lot of crazy things in those days that I think the statute of limitations is run out for, but we did get immense publicity for one particular action, and it did make a difference in the way certain laboratory animals are treated by vivisectors today. But anyway, that's for my memoirs. I'm here to talk about theory. So this talk presumes some familiarity with Marxism and post-Marxism, and I'm going to talk about that and how that intersects with the commodification of animals and how humans perceive animals. If there's something that's unfamiliar to you, write it down or Google it or ask me about it later. I have to rip through the slides because I've adapted, I came to this program on short notice, and I've adapted a law school presentation that contains a lot of dry lawyer stuff by putting back in the theory that sort of scares them off. So forgive me if I look at the screen instead of making eye contact with all of you. Anyway, so I'd like to thank you all for having me here, all the organizers and the students and everybody else from Critical Animal Studies. It's very inspiring because we are, those of us who are faculty are essentially training the next generation to continue the work that needs to be done. So anyway, my thing is I use some aspects of critical theory basically derived from the Frankfurt School with a lot of post-humanism and other things come in here. Remember, critical theory is syncretic in nature, so we can pick and choose and do like a big mashup. But critical theory is about integrating theory with praxis for an activist purpose. It asks, what went wrong and keeps going wrong, and how do we change the status, in this case of non-human animals? So anyway, basically in my work, there's a lot of conflict between so-called welfarists, animal rights people, liberationists, and abolitionists. And I'm generally identified as a liberationist, which is sort of on one extreme. So I don't agree with a lot of people in the movement. I don't believe in a broad coalition-based approach, and I have my own ideas about how things should be done. So anyway, enough about me. Critical animal studies, as a subdivision of critical theory, asks us to reconsider our assumptions of our relationship and our difference from non-human animals. It asks if we are exceptional. It rejects exceptionalism or speciesism in this context. By the way, I'm going to call the animals, the puppies, critters in honor of Donna Haraway, and there's a reason for that. And anyway, although I'm an animal law professor, I see my activist work is actually more important. Hey, can you help me roll down this? Can we go to the Paris Hilton slide, please? Oh, that's how you do it. Cool. Anyway, good. I'm working from two laptops. So we have this visual image of obviously, the iconic Paris Hilton with a teacup chihuahua. By the way, that's a replacement chihuahua. Her previous one was eaten by, I think, a coyote. Anyway, so what do you see in this image? What appeals to you here? Is there anything that arrests your eyesight, it focuses you? There's some kind of relationship, but there's not a real bond. They're looking away from each other. But more than economics are at play. There's the politics of class, site, proximity, and what Judith Butler calls engendered or entangled kinship. They're all implicated in this image. So I ask, who is cute, the teacup, Chihuahua, or Paris? What is the difference? What is different about a companion animal? Why do people produce and buy cute companion animals? Is it gender-based or is it merely economic? Is this an example of conspicuous consumption? This is not a farm animal who plows fields. This is a teacup Chihuahua. Is this merely the fault of capitalism? By the way, I'm not being gender specific and picking on women. Plenty of men buy puppy mill dogs or breeder dogs as well for different purposes, or to project different secondary sex characteristics to enhance their status or project their perceived status in the culture. So this is not gender specific. There are gender differences, and we're going to talk about that in relation to Judith Butler's work. By the way, Judith Butler is in New York this semester and is speaking at an event at Brooklyn College on the 7th. If anyone's interested, I saw her last week. I'm going to this one too. Anyway, so if you don't know who any of the people I refer to, write it down, ask me after. Anyway, classical Marxism, which we're not here to talk about. We're here to use that as a key to unlock our understanding of animal issues and puppy mills, because I've had a lot of experience litigating and drafting legislation in the puppy mill context. Classical Marxism describes the feeling, and again, we all know Marx didn't give a shit about animals, as one of alienation. He says that famously capital is dead labor, and then he wrote, trying to elaborate on this, he wrote, they transform his lifetime, he was referring to human of course, into working time. Accumulation of wealth at one pole is therefore at the same time accumulation of misery, agony, toil, slavery, ignorance, brutality, mentality, degradation at the opposite pole. So, let's use this in the context of animals, puppy mill dogs. All of these conditions are found in puppy mill dogs, only the critters there are both capital and labor. There are components to both, and this relates to Marx's phenomenology, which we'll refer to in context. So anyway, we had a case at Companion Animal, by the way, I represent Best Friends, Companion Animal Protection Society, a bunch of others, Smiling Pitbull in Boston, if you know Eric, and Blackfish, who you'll be hearing a lot about in future years. Anyway, all of these conditions are found in puppy mills, and I'm not going to go into a lot of horror stories. You can look those up on the web, see graphic images. I'm here to talk about the intersection of theory and the political economy of puppy mills. So anyway, we had this case, Barb Crick in Minnesota. She was convicted of animal torture for dissecting live animals and performing all sorts of amateur hobby surgeries on them. Really sick stuff, snuff films basically. And despite this, she's still breeding and selling puppies today. We had a 4-year campaign. We finally got her license pulled, and now she's operating under another name. So capital really was dead labor, because all of the puppies, the breeding pairs especially, were literally used up until there were nothing left, and then they were just shot basically and thrown in a ditch on Barb's property. And we've seen this paradigm repeated at other puppy mills. It's using up the capital breeding pairs until there's nothing left, until there's no value left, and they get no retirement. If they're lucky, they get a bullet in the back of the head. So anyway, going back to critical theory, and its expression here is CAS, Herbert Marcuse, a famous theorist in the 60s, wrote, "Praxis comes at the beginning along with theory. Remember that critical theory rejects from the get-go," and this is not Marcuse anymore, "the ontological distinction in social theory between facts and values." So what does this mean? This means that the social hieroglyph, which is in the title of my talk, contains hidden facts and values that embody the phenomenology of capital, which you guys need to learn to decipher. This is why we're still looking at this slide. What do you see here in the photo? Do you see the cruelty? Do you see the dog being bred in a puppy mill, the suffering of the parents, of the dog itself prior to sale? Do you see the commodification of this animal? Do you see being fed by kibble being thrown on a cement floor and maybe being castrated without anesthesia? That's what I ask you to consider. All these facts are embodied in the social hieroglyph metaphor of Marx, and I ask you to look at that, and we'll talk about that with Derrida in a few minutes. But anyway, I want you to look at the world differently. I want you to be able to go forth and